Welcome to the Twinkle Talks EYFS podcast. Working in the early years is busy, funny, messy, and exhausting. Join me, Shana, and the rest of the Twinkle EYFS team as we talk honestly about our experiences as practitioners, teachers, and professional nappy changers. Whether you're listening to increase your CPD hours or catching up on our antics whilst driving home from work, Twinkle EYFS will share everything you need to know about all things early years. Hello, lovely listeners. It's great to be here with you again, and I am so excited for today's episode. We have our first special guest, and boy, does she have an amazing amount of expertise to share with us all about resilience. But before we get into that, let's start with our fun segment of Praise a Practitioner. Helen, aka Helen's House Childminding, would like to give a shout out to her assistant Darcy. She said it's because she has been with me full time for around 5 months now and is such a help and so good with the children. Vicky would like to give a shout out to Christina. She's such a great team player and so amazingly, brilliantly, naturally fantastic with the children. Never had such a fab team. Thank you for everything you do. And Sarah, May, Olivia and Ellie would like to give a shout out to each other for all bringing their A game right now. Tune in next time for some more Praise the Practitioners, and don't forget to nominate your colleagues too. Amazing, well done everybody. It's so nice to hear what you guys have been up to and all of the successes and how you have been taking care of each other. That's what it's all about, isn't it? And it fits really nicely actually into our topic today. We have a extra special guest, Samantha Jayasuriya, here to talk to us about resilience. So without further ado, let's bring her in. So we have the lovely Sam with us. It's so great to have you here. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. And I thought it would be really good for us to get to know you before we begin. So why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hello. It's so lovely to be here. And I am genuinely so excited to be talking to you. And I can see you, Shana. I know the others can't. They can only hear us. But it's so lovely to see you. My name is Sam Jayasuriya. It's funny, actually, because if you'd asked me that maybe 10 years ago, I'd have said, it's Samantha Jayasuriya. But I've definitely just gone to Sam now. I've got a little bit more casual in my old age. Sam Jayasuriya, and I'm a leadership energy coach. My background actually is in education. I was 30 years in school. I was 20 years ahead in 3 different schools. I had this ambition to be ahead. By the time I was 40, I was ahead at 34.
Wow.
Maybe it was a bit too young. I don't know. It worked. So I was ahead at 34. Then I did a co-headship for 5 years. Then I did a full-time headship for another 5 years. And I finished my time in education with another co-headship, which was fabulous. And I absolutely loved working as a co-head in both times and with both of those leaders who were amazing. Yeah, now I work as a full-time coach and trainer. And it wasn't because I hated headship or hated being in school or anything to do with that. It was, I just absolutely loved the skill of being a coach. I loved being a coach. I trained to be a coach whilst I was a head teacher. And I trained to be a coach because I recognised that the resilience levels of many of the people who were entering teaching, from university or after their gap years or whatever, was quite low, and there was something going on that wasn't right. And I didn't think the CPD that was being offered really hit what was going on for these particular people. And some of them chose to leave very quickly because something wasn't quite right for them, and I absolutely get that. Some of them were leaving because actually they didn't really need to leave the profession. They just probably needed to leave that particular institution and go somewhere else. But there was no guidance, nothing to help and support teachers who felt like that. to give themselves another opportunity, another space. There are thousands of schools in the UK, but, why is it that just one school can make or break a teacher?
Yeah.
And I fundamentally disagree with that piece. I think people need chances to learn and grow, just as we give children chances to learn and grow. And so coaching was a tool that I knew was very powerful. And I knew that because I was coached. I was coached in my first headship. I had a very forward-thinking governing body. And this is in sort of like the early 2000s, who provided me with a coach, which was fabulous.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity of having somebody independent of the school and the governing body to work with me, who I could really open up and be quite honest with, and reflect on what was going on with my work as a head. Now, I know I can do that, and I could have done that with people in my team.
Mm-hmm.
But there is always an element that you hold back a little bit, particularly as a head.
Yeah.
And maybe for some of the listeners right now, if you're phase leaders or your early years practitioner leads, it's quite hard sometimes to just share everything with your team,
Mm-hmm.
particularly when you may be party to some staffing issues that might be coming up, or budgetary constraints, or falling roles, and you don't want to unsettle your team. So being able to express some of that to a coach who doesn't give you any answers because they don't know your working environment is a chance for you to process what you need to do next. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, had I said, I had a coach when I was in my first headship, and then I had a coach in my third headship. In between, I knew that I wanted to be a coach, didn't quite know how and when or what avenue I would take, but it was there. I just parked it and just carried on holding that ambition, but not actually putting it into practice. And then in my third headship, I had a coach again, and recognised actually this is what I absolutely love about working with people, is getting the best out of them, whether it's the children, whether it's the staff, whether it's the governors, whether it's a parent. It's actually getting the best out of other people.
Yeah. And I have to say that we have to admit something to our listeners, Sam, because we know each other, don't we? We know each other.
We absolutely do.
And the way we know each other is that Sam doesn't just help leaders in education. The first time we collaborated together was you were my coach when I was in NQT. And you're so right that having that outside, that external voice, that external person to talk to about your practice, your journey, your experiences is so important, because whether you're in a leadership role or you're just as a teacher, it still is a leadership role, isn't it? Because you are managing and leading a class, that there are some things that you do hold back. And it's really good to get that impartial voice that doesn't know necessarily what's going on in your practice, but is there to focus on you and to get you to focus on you and really grow you as a person. And that is exactly what you did for me. So as soon as I knew that we were having a podcast, I was like, right, get in contact with Sam immediately, because I truly believe that what you did for me was pivotal to helping me internalize and self-reflect, because quite often it's really easy to get caught up in, well, especially in the climate that education is in at the moment, to look at what is going wrong externally and feel like you're out of control.
Yes.
And what you're doing and what your practice is and what your coaching is that actually you're helping us to take back that control and say, you know what, okay, this is what's going on outside, but what can I do internally? And I just think that is so powerful and so important. And I agree with you. I feel like it is something that's really missed when practitioners and teachers do their training. We have to look after ourselves in order to look after our children, our team. And resilience is the key word here, isn't it? So
absolutely, it is resilience. But I'm just going to go back a little bit to what you were saying, about looking after ourselves and knowing ourselves, and that's the key bit. I think that there's many of us, we kind of like trundle through life. We do our A-levels, and then we go and do our degree, and then we think, oh, we're going to do a BEd, or we might do a PGC, or whatever it is. But we don't stop and just go, hold on, how is this? Why is this working for me? One of the most powerful questions I used to ask people at interview was, what was your experience your experience like at school, and how has that shaped you as a teacher now? And that, it wasn't a question that we could grade or give like, oh, that's a great answer or not. It was actually just stopping people and making them think, what is bringing me here? And just having an opportunity to just stop and pause through coaching. What's bringing me here? What's keeping me here? How are my values matching with this school values? How are my strengths being utilised? How am I utilising my strengths? What am I bringing to the party here? What can I bring? And actually, we individually can bring so much. We do this so well with children.
Yeah.
There's like a sort of a schism somewhere, and it all falls away.
Yeah.
When does that happen? I'm not quite sure. But through coaching, it's a chance for us to go, hold on, this is who I am. This is who I am as a leader in this class, whether I'm an NQT, whether I'm a phase leader, whether I've been working in this school for 30 years. This is who I am now. This is what I can bring. And that is a very powerful, that's the power bit you were talking about. That's the power that I think when people are coached, there's the power comes back to them.
Yeah.
And not to say, no, I'm not going to do that, and being a difficult member of staff, but actually saying, I can do this. This is something I want to do as well.
Yeah.
And I have the capability. So that piece in terms of resilience is really knowing yourself.
Yeah. I feel like you've already answered my question, because I feel like the word resilience gets thrown around so much, but what does it actually mean?
So I use the definition from the resilient. I'm a resilience engine practitioner.
Oh.
So I've done a substantial piece of training around resilience, and the work comes from Jenny Campbell, and it's a piece of research that she carried out over 10 years. This book I'm going to give you the book's links for your notes, for the show notes.
Yes, please.
It's called The Resilience Dynamic. Jenny Campbell is the author. She's the CEO of this company that runs Resilience Engine Practice. Now, when you train to be a Resilience Engine practitioner, it's not just a one-off piece of training that you do and that's the end of it. You belong to that community. You have supervision. You are, you have to kind of carry on with your own professional development throughout. You have to reaccredit every couple of years. All too often, I see pieces of training which sort of tap into resilience, but then there's nothing underneath.
Yeah.
So this is a piece of training with substance. And maybe this is a nod to my head teacher days. I want to have something that's got a bit of substance beneath it. So it's got some theory, some research. It's got scientific methods aligned with it before I will then work with that particular tool or practice. But the definition for resilience the Resilience Engine practitioners use, is it's our ability to adapt and our capacity to change. It is not just about bouncing back. If you bounce back after a really tricky situation, you're just going to be back in exactly the same place and you have not done any learning. That is not a resilient person. It is not just bouncing back. It is the ability to adapt. And it's how adaptable are you? And some people are not that, they're not so adaptable. So in terms of helping them to be adaptable, we build in capacity for change.
Right.
Now we build the capacity for change so the 4 key enablers of resilience are energy, being present, having a clear purpose, and learning.
Fantastic.
Those are the 4 ones. And so for practitioners, your earliest practitioners who might be listening to this podcast, the quickest way that you can kind of boost your own resilience is focus on your energy. So the energy piece is all about being physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually aware. That's what we want. We want to work on those 4 tenets of energy. And when you're thinking about your physical energy, you can think about things that you're doing inside and out of school. Outside school, you might be going jogging, or you might be doing a fitness class, or you might be doing, what is it you do? You do...
I do aerial classes.
Aerial classes, right? Or you might do Pilates or yoga or whatever it is, you decide what you're going to do in terms of your physical energy. You can do that in school too. You don't have. I mean, I could imagine early years of practitioners rolling their eyes now, saying, "Sam, come on, we are super physical in early years."
Yeah, we don't stop.
Absolutely. And the fact actually is very rare that you'd come in, I'd go into an early years setting and have people just sitting down.
Right.
They would be on the floor. They'll be, jumping outside on the skipping ropes.
Yeah.
They definitely, I know that you would all be doing a lot of stuff, but having those sort of thinking about your physical energy, even in terms of the functional movements that you're doing every day. So setting up your room in the morning, you might be carrying the tough trays outside. You may be, moving around the classroom and moving stuff around. At the end of the day, sweeping the floor. I mean, I know everybody does this. Sweeping the floor and tidying up the room.
Mm.
The functional movement is supporting your physical resilience levels. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah.
And then within the working day, okay, you can head off if you're lucky to the staff room and sit down and have lunch, or maybe you can just go for a walk around the playground, walk around the grounds if you're lucky to have them, walk up the street. But those tiny little steps help build your resilience in terms of physical resilience.
Mm.
Yeah. And then you kind of go through the other things, mental, emotional, spiritual. And they're going to say, how do we boost our spiritual energy, Sam?
Yeah.
Well, that's a nice, easy one. I think actually early years have it so easy in terms of that one because you're constantly outside. You've got the outdoor classrooms. You're constantly outside. You're always looking up at the sky. There's always going to be somebody walking around saying, "Miss, what's this?" Or "I found this, and look at this bug, and look at this flower." There'll be children drawing your attention to the natural beauty around you.
Mm.
So in terms of your spiritual well-being, those are little drops of joy that you can just capture for yourself, as well as the child is capturing for themselves.
Yeah. It's almost like grounding, isn't it?
Yes. That's a really good thing. I'm glad you said that.
Well, I learned from the best, Sam. I learned from the best.
Yeah. So as we're talking, I've just noticed my feet as we've been talking, and I had them kind of sort of propped up on each other. They weren't sort of on the ground properly. So now I've put them on the ground, and now I'm feeling my toes. This is the quickest way to build your resilience. It's just ground yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're standing outside in the playground and you're on duty and you're just feeling yourself a little bit not quite with it, just notice your toes and then take your attention through, just do a quick little body scan, and you're here, right here. You're not floating in space. And that way you're noticing your body, how your body is taking up space in the world.
Mm.
And for children, often they don't recognise that, for little children as well.
Yeah.
And that's when you get the sort of the biting and the fighting and the scuffling. They don't recognise how their bodies move through the space. So we can model that as leaders, as all of you are who work in early years are leaders in your own right. You model that by showing them how your body takes up space. That will help them be a more resilient young person as well.
For sure. I think as well, it's quite often because we see ourselves as facilitators, as leaders, and we put our children first, it's really easy to forget us, isn't it? And put ourselves on the back burner. And the kind of things that you're suggesting is very much like, no, hang on, you hold space too, and that's important. So yeah, like you say, bringing yourself back to the importance of your physical body, your energy, your values, your importance is a really good way to be like, just to, like you say, ground and kind of get back to that inner equilibrium.
Yes. And I have coached and worked with as a head and coached now as a coach many people in education who it feels like they're not quite sure of who they are, so they hide and so that hiding bit, and that comes across as a lack of confidence, possibly in front of the class, in front of a group, in front of the class. There's a sort of and that's not, and there is a sort of maybe they may be slightly more introvert in their nature, but that doesn't, in terms of grounding, when I've talked just that simple body scan that I've just shared with you, those are some of the tools and techniques that I I can share with my clients as well that help them take up the space and remind them of their worth. Yeah, so you can be quiet and less loud, but you are still worthy of being in that room. So this is all about building a bit of this is the work we do around self-esteem.
Yeah.
So sometimes that quietness and shyness comes through a lack of self-esteem. Sometimes it comes through because actually that's just their personality. But actually learning some of those techniques help them be in the space, be the lead practitioner with that group, help those children flourish. Because that's the bottom line, isn't it? The bottom line for me coaching education leaders is children are the impact is going to be on the children.
For sure.
Because you will walk through the door and you will be a more confident person. There'll be clarity in your delivery. You'll have a calmness about you that will regulate the team. And the calmness won't be a flat calmness. It will be a positive calmness. There's going to be a warmth from you that will regulate the energy of everybody around you. Everybody around you is going to pick up that you're in a good place. And when you're in a good place, your children are going to be in a good place. We all know this. So if I wouldn't go into school with a big bad headache and tell the children, because they would know as soon as I walked in the door. They would know from the pace of my step. They would know from maybe a little bit of like a soreness on my face. They might, the furrowed brow.
Yeah.
They would feel it from me because we have something called the felt sense, and our felts, we can feel the energy of other people.
For sure.
So being able to, come to work well regulated through working on your energy so that you are then present with your class. Your key purpose. So I'm here in this building because I want to work with children. And that taps into maybe another purpose in my life. And then the learning is about you're learning about yourself.
I think it's really interesting as well because as you're talking, what kind of things it is also bringing up for me is sometimes as practitioners, as teachers, we feel lost. And that really resonates with me because this might be true for some of our listeners as well, but I am an introvert. I much prefer reading a book, or I enjoy socializing, but it takes energy away from me. I need to have some alone time to recharge. That's just, how I am. And being in early years, that's virtually impossible. Yes. Okay, kids are they are loud, they are fun, they are vibrant, and I would actually often find myself putting on a character. Me, Shana, I am an introvert. I like this is how I behave. But as Miss Walker, as a teacher, my personality was very different because I felt that I needed to change my energy in order to resonate and relate to my children and to keep up with them. And everyone would usually say, "Oh my gosh, Shoshana, you're so you're so goofy and out there." I used to get loads of comments like, "Oh, you should be a CBeebies presenter." And I'm like, that's Miss Walker, that's not me.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite easy for practitioners to feel that and get lost in that personality, because it is kind of, for some of us, a performance. And that has a knock-on effect on our resilience, because I would spend so much of my energy on the day trying to be this fun, exciting practitioner. Yeah. And then when I got home, I would be like, okay, I'm just going to get in a blanket and watch Netflix for 3 hours and not talk to a single soul. So that affects our resilience as well. Obviously, it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
Some people, it is just their personality and it's great. But for others, we do have to change.
Absolutely. And just think about the children in your early year settings. They're going to be a mixture too. So there will be some more extrovert children in that group, and there may be some more introvert people in that group. And so that's the way that you as practitioners will set up your room is that there will be spaces that those children who are more extrovert can head to, and there'll be ones who are more introvert, or there may be the ones who flit in between. And that's the same for us in school. And that's about the school environment as a whole. So looking at your school environment. So if you are a listener here and you're, a head teacher, or you're an early years lead manager of a unit, where is it that your staff can refresh themselves? Because part of being a resilient person is that you need to know what refreshes you.
Yeah.
So what refreshes you? So in terms of, so for you maybe Shana, you might need to have a space in the staff room which is actually quiet, where it's a quiet space.
Indeed, where I can have a nap, that'd be great.
Oh yeah, but also being able to have the confidence to say, do you know what, peeps, I'm going to have to be quiet now. And that's a sign of a resilient team, a team who can talk to each other at that level and say, right now I need some quiet time. Right now I need to just go off and have a chat with somebody else in another year group. Right now, this is what I need. And being able to articulate it without it sounding like you're cross.
Yeah.
Or, you've had your nose put out of joint in some way. I just need this. I'm okay, but I need to refresh myself in this way. So actually using that term, I need to refresh myself right now. I need to renew myself right now. Whatever it is, whatever sounds right for you, find a way of expressing that to your team.
That's a really good point, actually.
And actually sit down over a cup of tea or coffee or any other beverage, but maybe not wine.
Maybe not at lunchtime,
Not at lunchtime, definitely not at lunchtime. And talk about, what drives you? Do you need that bit of quiet? Do you need a bit of, bubble? You might be surprised, like you've just said, you had the Miss Walker persona. And people might think, oh, yeah, Shana extrovert, she's always here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you have shared now as to your listeners, that's not the case. If you were working in a school, you could actually articulate, I need a bit of quiet time now. Because you don't want to go home and collapse. Because you have another life after work.
Oh, do we, Sam? Do we?
Yes, you do. You do. And that's about, again, this is about resilience again. Because the barriers to resilience are having no boundaries. That's the key one. No boundaries. And unfortunately, I do know this, that the school systems and the nursery systems pull on our time, our outside work time. There's 168 hours in a week. Yeah. So listeners, 168 hours in a week. I want you to take away a 10-hour working day, however many hours that adds up to, plus the plus time that you sleep, and then look at the rest of the time that you've got there. What are you doing? Now, if you can see yourself just doing more work, how can you take that back? How can you take a little bit back? How can you shave some things off? What could you do? This is about time management here. And one of the things about that I know this is a kind of a given pretty much for most education professionals I work with. You are people who love to give. We are people who love to give and love to support and love to help. There is a giving nature, I think, to the majority of people who work in schools. But actually, the giving bit has to come to you as well. That whole bit about there's no I in team, so that makes people feel guilty when they think about themselves.
Yeah.
So there's the guilt bit. You need to get rid of the guilt. Strip back, look at your time, 168 hours. Where am I giving? What am I using that time for? Put in eating, by the way, please. Eating needs to be in there. Self-care as in showering and bathing needs to be in there.
For sure.
And then just start to do small steps. Small steps.
Yeah.
Can you get back your Friday evening? Can you get back the whole of Saturday?
Yeah, I'm just aware of our listeners who have kids as well. Like, I'm lucky, I don't have children, and so I do have more time than other practitioners, and I just think how challenging it is for parents and carers who are also early years practitioners. Where do they find the time, Sam?
Where do they find the time? Well, again, knowing people that I work with right now, they will be the parent, mum, dad, to their child, and then once they're in bed, they end up staying up till really late. So for those people as well, I'm absolutely, it is not right. So it's about how you're using your time in the day. Do you need to tell everybody everything? Are there smarter ways of you communicating some of the information without overloading people through WhatsApp groups and email? The emails that we send, schools send an awful lot of emails, and school leaders send a huge amount of emails. Maybe the emails need to stop at 6 o'clock. You might choose to write an email late at night. If you choose to do that, it doesn't get sent. You use schedule send. Every email, whatever it's Google Mail or Outlook or whatever, has schedule send. You don't send emails in the middle of the night. You don't send emails after 6 o'clock. And they just come at 8 o'clock. So then people know, okay, there might be an email at 8 o'clock in the morning, then I'll look then. So you just use some of the tools that these tech companies have given to us that we completely ignore. Meeting times, because I know that early years leaders often have a lot of meetings. I would put an extra 10 minutes on your meeting time, not for you to carry on talking for 10 minutes, but you have 10 minutes when you can just reflect for yourself. What are the outcomes of that meeting? What do I need to do next? Do I need to send a quick email? Do I need to make a quick phone call to somebody?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, my meeting times. So when I coach, I usually coach for. It's normally an hour. I do for some people an hour and a half. But I have on my calendar, I've got an automatic hour and a half for any meeting. Any meeting I put in. So say for this meeting, I put it comes up as an hour and a half. I can change that because I know we won't be that long. But then I'm in control then. And if other people are in control of your calendar, early years leaders, you ask them to have that hour and a half there as well, or whatever you choose to have for your meetings.
Yeah.
And this is a way, I work with business leaders, I work with CEOs in big companies, and they will do this. And they are as busy in their worlds as people in school. And they will put in that piece of reflection time. And that's the bit of pause time. That's when you can boost your resilience as well. Because in that 10 minutes, you go, okay, how am I now? Do I need to eat something? Do I need to go to the toilet? I bet some of you don't even remember to go to the toilet.
No.
Yeah. What do I need to attend to myself right now that will make me a better person for the next thing that I go into?
That's really important.
Oh, I sound like I'm lecturing people, and I don't mean to at all.
No, I don't think you are.
These are the things that I think are so important. But any of my ex-members of staff who are listening, they will know, as a head, I signposted this really clearly. I'm somebody who absolutely needs to have lunch. And my blood sugar goes down. I get really ratty if I don't eat regularly. So I communicated that to everybody. So the office staff knew that, my office of my deputy knew that, senior leadership team knew that, the children knew it. I told the children. So actually just sharing that meant that I could have lunch, and many, many, many times I would eat lunch with the children, or I'd have lunch in the staff room with my colleagues, or I'd make lunch and then pull in some of my members of staff who found it really hard to have lunch to eat lunch together. And that helped. That really helped me, and it helped the team dynamic as well.
I was going to ask as well, obviously with everything that's gone on in the past couple of years, have you and your coaching clients seen a change in the way resilience is viewed, or actually just how resilience in their workplace has changed because of COVID?
There's definitely, obviously not just, I don't think it's just with COVID, because prior to that, there's been a huge push on staff wellbeing. I think there's been a shift in terms of people paying more attention to themselves and what they need. What's kind of missed a little bit is the team resilience piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely something I pick up when I work with groups and with senior leadership teams or with school groups, is how do we actually work on the team resilience? And it is slightly different. So yes, there's the whole, key enablers for ourselves, energy, learning, purpose, and being present. And then with the team, it's how we are collaborating together, what good qualities what are my best qualities as a team member? That was another question I always asked. Any interviews I did for 20 years, what good qualities do you have as a team member?
I think I remember that question when we were doing our coaching, and I think I remember I really struggled with it. I was like, I don't know. I can tell you all the things I'm terrible at, though.
And isn't that the way that we always go to our weaknesses rather than our strengths?
Yeah.
But actually, the strengths of the team. What qualities do I have as a team member? Yeah. And each of us have different qualities that we bring. In your early years team, you're going to have a range of things that people will share. then you utilize that. That is how you utilize those qualities and those strengths to really build the team resilience. So I think there's a little bit there again about articulating it. Is articulating stuff that we kind of sort of know, but we never really say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say it, then there's a, not that person's going to be burdened with always being the one who's sort of cheerleading, or always being the one who does the spreadsheet, or always being the one who, who's, I don't know, whatever roles there is in a team, but we share it. And actually, in sharing your team's strengths, you will see the team weaknesses. You will notice what the team weaknesses are. And in noticing that, then you put in some things to compensate for those weaknesses. Okay, people, we really love getting our heads into the creating bit, but nobody ever seems to make a decision. So let's do some of that creative brainstorming now for 15 minutes. And Shana, you're going to be the one who's going to pull us up after 15 minutes to say, okay, what are we going to do?
That's really interesting. And it's quite important, isn't it? Because often, say if you are a leader or a nursery manager, you often feel that you have to do everything. But actually, and then on the flip side, perhaps if you have a manager, you feel like maybe you can't do as much because it's not your place. I've got my fingers up in inverted commas here. But actually, you're right. It's actually giving the power to everyone because, as you say, we all have value. We all have something to bring to the table. Yeah. So it's really important to, as a leader, give that space to your team, and as a team member to feel like you have that space. So that's really important in resilience as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that way, those people, everybody in the team has got a voice. Everybody in the team has got, as you say, a space at the table. And it's really, and it's noticed, and you will feel, say if you're an NQT or a student working in the class, they'll have amazing new ideas and sort of experiences that they can offer that somebody who may have been working in the unit for, say, 20 years might not have ever had.
Sure.
Or may not have ever had. So what makes one person's view better than another? Is it always through years of experience? I don't believe that. My son is 18, can teach me so much. Much. And a small child of 3 can teach us so much.
Exactly.
Because their view of the world is so different to ours, but it is equally important.
I just want to put my hands up and say amen. But that is, And I think we all feel that, don't we? And that's what we all try and do as practitioners, is we know how important our children's voice are. And we spend so much time, whether it's through planning, whether it's through, other things that we do, that we put our children's voices first. They are heard. But guess what? We got to do it for us as well. It's so easy to do it for other people and for our children. But actually, yes, we also have that space. And we could also be facilitators because it's so naturally ingrained in the team. We then naturally pop it into the way we behave with our children, and it just sort of flows, doesn't it? It's kind of like we build resilience in that team. We make sure that everyone feels we have a voice, and then we just do it with our children, and then it brings them up, and we build resilience in them as well without really having to try and be like, right, today, children, we're going to learn about resilience. Absolutely. Or when your brick tower falls down, you're going to keep going. Like, that's kind of the token things that we kind of fall to.
The perseverance bit and the persistence bit.
Yeah, and actually it's so much more than that. And by doing it in your team, you're also doing it with your children just quite naturally, because it's like you say, it's that innate ability.
Absolutely.
Which is just going to...
And if you think about it, if you are really working on your own resilience, you're focused on, just small drops. I will say this over and over again: baby steps, small drops, little pieces. This isn't you don't boost your resilience in one great big kind of like whoosh. It's small, regular, daily habits, and it's those daily habits and those daily practices. That's what builds the masterpiece. You go back to an old, Leonardo da Vinci. He didn't paint the Mona Lisa just like that, and he didn't, do all of his amazing works of art just like that. It was daily practice, and that's the same with resilience. It is daily habits, daily practice. That's what actually keeps our resilience level higher.
you've already spoken about the top 4 key resilience enablers, but I also found as well, you talking about the 5 C's of authentic leadership. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah. So my coaching model is all around the 5 C's. To really, when I work with leaders, really helping them sort of focus in who they are, we work on being curious, to really know yourself, to be courageous and motivate yourself. And you need to learn what motivates you and how to motivate yourself. To be creative, to enrich yourself, to use your community to support yourself. And that will bring around change, which is your future self. So I use those words. I've used those words throughout the whole of my life. In my last school, we used them quite regularly as words of the term that came through, and I pulled them into my own coaching model that I use all the time. Those are the words that I live my life by. So, if I'm feeling, a little bit lonely, out of sorts, not quite right, I think about my community. Who in my community can support me now? Is it somebody in my family? Is it somebody in a friendship group? Is it somebody of my work colleagues? What can I do? How can I use my community to support others and then support myself? Going and doing a bit of shopping for somebody, helping somebody out with something. It's that sense. Being curious is key, though. I always start with being curious because I want people to start to unpick some of these notions that they hold about themselves that weigh them down. These are the things that we have in our backpack. Maybe a comment from, an ex-member of staff, or a really difficult interaction with a parent that has then slightly hampers the way we then next sort out a similar issue with another child. So being curious and letting some of that stuff go, because some of that stuff is just really not us anymore. Some of the experiences that we had as children in school ourselves that we might hold on to as teachers, that we just need to let go of, because they just don't, they're not really useful anymore. Some of that learning is useful, but some of it is really not useful. So being really curious about who you are, how do you show up in the world? What labels do you hold about yourself, in terms of your nationality, your culture, your gender, who is it? Who is coming into the front of the classroom? And being confident about who you are in that curiosity piece supports you to be courageous, to be creative, to use your community to bring about positive change for your group. It's called the change flywheel. And I call it the change flywheel because there's a little bit of a momentum that builds up when you get into this cycle. The momentum for change is powerful. I would rather go with positive power than the negative.
Yeah, for sure.
That comes.
And I mean, I could sit here and listen
all day.
Listen for hours to hear you speak, because I think this is so important and so it's going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. And actually, it already has, because I told our followers, our members, our listeners that we're having you on, and I said, "Have you got any questions?" Yes, they do, Sam. Yes, they do. So I'm going to put some questions to you from our listeners, and just to share some advice on what they say. So we've got Holly first. She asks, I would like to ask about regulation and resilience. What are the links, and how do you build resilience when we act as regulators for our children? Who then regulates us?
Okay, so I think we've kind of answered that question already in our talk. Who regulates us? We regulate us.
Right.
We are in charge of our own resilience. We build our capacity for change. We are the ones who are looking for the ability to adapt. Where do we need to adapt?
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, we regulate ourselves.
And if you don't know how to regulate yourself.
If you don't know how to regulate yourself, you can come and talk to me.
There you
come
go.
And talk to me.
There you go.
Absolutely. And actually, if any listener does want to come and talk to me, I have a little Calendly booking thing. People can come and talk to me for 20 minutes, and we'll just have a chat about what needs to happen if they want to work with me.
Oh, wow.
And then I can talk to them about that. But actually, in that 20-minute chat, they'll definitely take stuff away then they can use to support themselves. And so there is definitely a link between regulation and resilience. So that. The windy day experience. Come on, you all know this one.
Oh, yes.
Every child comes in, whoa-hi, flying high as a kite. And what do? As a teacher, you keep yourself super calm. They take the calmness from you, hopefully. You are regulating them. So there is absolutely a link, and vice versa. When you're tired, when you're snappy, when you're cross because you haven't eaten properly and you come into work, they're going to pick that up. So it's so key that we work on our own resilience levels. And the easiest way, remember I said, work on your energy first.
Good idea. Yeah, and all the things like you said, you've already covered. It's about the grounding, about the breath work, about taking that reflection time.
Yeah.
These are all little things that we can do to support ourselves when we support others. Amazing. Thank you. Joe asks, hi, we are a school that has been through a tricky patch over the last few years. Changes to leadership and high staff turnover and lots of change. Therefore, we have lots of involvement from others and lots of observations. We all know that there are always ways to improve in schools, but the feedback is always lots of improvement points and not many positives. So how do we keep bouncing back from this? That's going to resonate with a lot of people, I think.
So, Joe, that sounds like a really tricky situation, and it's a scenario that I've been through. I went through many times in my life as a teacher and as a head teacher. And I'm going to flag up this little book that hopefully Shana can put into the podcast notes.
Yeah.
It's called The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. Now, you're going to have all these people coming in and doing whatever they do, doing their walk-arounds and their book checks and their monitoring. Once they've gone, okay, first thing I'd say is, once you're in that meeting and they've left the room, I would get up and move. I'd probably get up and move, maybe go as a team, get up and move, walk around the school, go to the loo, get yourself a drink somewhere else. Maybe not even come back to that same room if possible, but go somewhere else and just sort of sit and just give yourself a moment, because it's so all too easy to have all those comments landing, and then you just sit and you just stew on them. Now, our courage sits in our guts. Our motivation sits in our guts. So we need to move our bodies. Yeah, we need to get up and move. We've forgotten the art of moving as leaders. And then I'd go to these questions, use these questions. This book is a perfect book. The author, Michael Bungay Stanier, distills the essentials of coaching into 7 core questions. And I want you to use these 7 questions as a way to support you and your team. So once you've reconvened and you come back, and it might not even be that day, each of you could say, what's on our mind? And then maybe share whatever it is. Just get that out. What's on our mind? And what else? What's the real challenge here for us? What do we want? How can we help? If we're saying yes to this, what are we going to say no to? And what's the most useful thing for us? So take back the power. Take back the power. Be more reflective. That question, if we are saying yes to this, what are we saying no to? Because there's often this layering and layering and layering and layering and layering of more and more stuff. And that's what breaks your back. Yeah. But what are we letting go of if we're now expected to do this?
Yeah.
And if not letting go of, what can we tweak? What can we tweak so that we're doing this?
That's really important.
Yeah. Take back the power through asking yourselves those questions. And I really hope, Joe, that helps. But this little book is super cheap, and I think you can get it on one of the groups I worked with recently. I'm pretty sure they said it's either free or like £1. There are times on Kindle or audio books and things you can get it really cheap. So that's a good one.
Amazing. Thank you. Fabia asks, the atmosphere in my preschool is so good at the moment. Despite all the bad news, everyone is working as a team and using communication to support everyone. It's lovely. How can we keep this going as things start to get tougher?
Okay. So in terms of getting tougher, maybe they experience possibly waiting for an Ofsted, maybe it's something else. We briefly touched on the white paper when we were warming up this morning. There are things looming which are going to unsettle all schools. Budgets in terms of energy costs for schools. I know that that's going to be a huge challenge, in terms of gas and electric costs. So if you've got to keep the school warm and most of your budget's going on that, what's left for us? I'd go back to what I was talking to you about, what makes you a good team member, because that sounds like you've got a fabulous team right now. You've got a fabulous team and people are supporting each other, but maybe you're not articulating it with each other. What is it that makes us such a great team? What are the qualities that we all bring? How are we going to harness this? Actually be explicit with each other, because you're noticing it, Fabia, but maybe people haven't actually, other people in your team might not have noticed this. So having those sorts of conversations.
Really good. And last but certainly not least, Lucy says, I'm a room leader for a nursery, and with everything in the news at the moment, my team morale is really low. Is there anything I can do to support my team's well-being outside of work?
That's a tough one as well, in terms of, we're not in control. We're not in control of other people's well-being. It's a bit like behaviour, You can't change a child's behaviour. You can change your own behaviour towards them.
Okay, yeah.
You can put in those procedures and routines and structures to support them. But in the end, it's somebody's got to support themselves. So in terms of well-being outside work, put in some key boundaries, I think, will be quite a good one, and some sort of finishing time, so people do have time outside work.
Yeah. Like you were talking about those emails and not sending emails.
Yes. So those procedures, how are we going to support each other to build our own personal resilience? I'll come back to the team bit in a minute, but the thing about the news, what's going on in the news. So one, heating over eating, that's massive for so many people who work in school, because you've got people who are not, on very, very low wages, and they're going to find it incredibly tough. The war in Ukraine, huge. There's so many things. I don't want to kind of list them because it's going to just take the tone down, but it is big.
Yeah.
So for me, I start with the most simplest thing is your heart. So a moment or if something really big hits, and it could be something like a safeguarding issue. I know there's been a run of some really serious case reviews that have hit the headlines with very, very young children being abused, murdered, all you know what I'm talking about. Start with the heart. Recognise that is something that is actually incredibly unsettling for you and your team, and do a minute of heart breathing, coherent breathing. And this is 5 out, 5 in, or 6 out, 6 in. So you just to regulate your breathing into a balance, called balanced breathing. Hand on your heart and try and imagine yourself breathing through your heart as you're doing it. Now I have to do 5 because it's easier for me. Some people can maybe do 7. It depends on your lung capacity. But I imagine myself breathing through my heart, and I think of somebody or something that brings me great pleasure. And in that way, I'm regulating my autonomic nervous system. Because if something really stressful has happened, there's 2 branches of our autonomic nervous system. My sympathetic nervous system has been triggered. And then when that's triggered, I'm going to go into fight or flight or freeze. I don't want that. So I want to get it back into balance. And that is the quickest way to get myself into homeostasis, into balance. And then I can then switch on my prefrontal cortex and start my thinking, what am I going to do about this? So start with heart breathing. The other thing you can do is just to do 3 breaths. If you can do 3 breaths when you're really stressed about something, that's good. That takes you back to and ground yourself, find your feet. Those are 2 simple body things that you can do. And then remember that compassion and our connection sits in our heart. So it's the small steps. Hope sits in our heart. Hope always triumphs over despair. So once you've done your balanced breathing, as a team you could do this. What can we do? What small step, again, can we do to support this particular issue? Even just recognising what's going on in the world might be enough. And then you can go into maybe some of the more altruistic motives of, cake sales, bake sales, what have you to do fundraising or connecting with somebody in your community. So Pandora opened that box and all the evil things came into the world. This is the story, the old Greek myth. And what was left in the box is hope. Hope sits in our hearts. Hope is what I want you to remind all early years leaders. That hope is there always. You always have that hope that child will stop biting. You will always have that hope that child will, finally learn spot the letter of their name. You always have that hope that that child who always plays in the outside playground will one day come back to the book corner and open up a book. Hope is always there. So that's what I would like to kind of end up for you. Hope is key. Hold on to that. So Lucy, you need to build on hope. Yeah. But start with some coherent breathing.
That was amazing. I was actually just going to ask you, what one thing would you like the listeners to take away with? But you have already done that. What a beautiful, it's like my heart actually was like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful at the end, because it is, isn't it? And it's about holding on to that. And I just think that's a really nice way to end and to finish. So thank you so much. Before we go though, we're going to play a little game, if you're up for it.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
You've spoken about some really, really, really important issues and how to support yourself with that. So I thought at the end we'll do a little fun game. It's called Would You Rather Teacher Edition. Okay, so this is some hard-hitting questions here, Sam.
Okay.
So,
I'm ready.
Would you rather tea or coffee?
Neither. I gave up tea and coffee in 2018. Woohoo!
Oh, well done.
So I drink now rooibos tea, redbush tea, and turmeric tea.
Oh, very healthy. This is
Yeah.
kind of tea. That's kind of your...
It is kind of tea.
Bit.
And I, as a Sri Lankan, giving up tea was really, really hard. Tea leaves are in my blood.
Yes.
But it was very hard, but it was necessary for me because I couldn't give up the sugar, actually. And I was having more sugar. I was exceeding my recommended daily amount of sugar in the cups of tea that I had.
I think we've all done that. Yeah. Fabulous. What about this one? This is a doozy, this one. Would you rather run breakfast club or after school club?
I think realistically, I'm going to go for after school club. And if any of my ex-colleagues are listening, they're going, yeah, that's because you just got in by the skin of your teeth, Sam. So after school club. And actually, I think I'd like after school club. And I've got the sun coming in on my face right now. End of the day, when everybody's just kind of just lets go a little bit, the shoulders drop, there's a nice calmness and a sort of, easiness about after school club.
See, I'm an early bird, you see, so I think it'd always be breakfast club for me. Get everything done out of the way quick and then leave as soon as you can. So last but certainly not least, would you rather lead a school trip or a school performance?
Oh, hard one, because I quite like both, but I think I'm going to go with school trip because I absolutely love taking children out of school. That whole curiosity piece, finding out about the world, taking them out of their environment. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I also found out so much more new stuff for myself. All those trips used to fill me with lots of bits of information about the Romans and, Kew Gardens or wherever it was I was taking them.
Yeah.
And I would always take children, I often used to take children on the tube. And as an early years teacher myself, when I was first teaching, I would take reception year 1 and year 2 out on the tube regularly. It was fun.
Wow. My heart is having palpitations just at the thought of that.
I never lost anyone.
Well, you're a better person than I. Thank you so much for playing. Again, thank you so much for coming on the show. I can confidently speak on behalf of all of the listeners that it's just been amazing.
Well, I really enjoyed talking, Shana.
No, thank you. And before you go, tell us about your coaching. Where can people find you if this is something that they want to learn more about?
Okay, so my company is called Sun and Sky Coaching. So if you just do Sun and Sky Coaching, you'll find me that way. And I know that there'll be some links in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
I do one-to-one coaching for anybody, really, a one-to-one coaching. Usually people work with me for about 6 months. I also do a course called Evolution. Evolution is a course for future leaders, and it's really targeted. I've got it for corporates as well as for school, but for school leaders, I'm targeting people who are who've just moved into a phase leader role, or there's been some really significant churn and change in their school, and many schools are like that, and they haven't had some professional development for a long time. You work with me over a period of about 3 months. So the current group I'm working with started with me on the 31st of January, and they will finish their final training with me on the 25th of April. In between, so they do 4 training sessions, and the training sessions are called inquiry, empowerment, engagement, and enrichment. They then have a coaching session in between, and I also teach them some coaching techniques. I kept the cost of this course, and it is a really powerful course, really low for schools, £650. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but honestly, if you were going for coaching, you'd probably spend for a good coach, you'd spend £200 an hour for a good coach.
Wow.
So this is a really great package. Currently, I've got 8 people on my course from 3 different schools, a real range of sort of experience. And the best thing about this is that you will have somebody maybe in a year 6 key stage 2 lead working with an early years lead, but you are sharing similar things. And it's the power of sharing experience with other leaders, which is really important.
Amazing.
So my next one is launching in September. So I do this in September to Christmas, and then from January to spring. Actually, one more thing I do is also I do resilience workshops. 100% do those for schools. With resilience workshops, I would always do like 2 afternoons, and there'll be a gap in between because people have got to do a little bit of their own work in between, but resilience workshops as well.
Perfect. It's been amazing. I know I've said it loads of times, but thank you so much, Sam, for coming and sharing your expertise. It's wonderful, and I'm sure we'll get to talk more soon. So thank you so much, and it's been an absolute honour to have you.
Thank you.
Oh, guys, wasn't that just amazing? I could listen to Sam talk for hours on end, and this is just a little snippet of her expertise and how she helps us as practitioners build resilience. So please go and check out all of the links, get in contact with her. She is, I'm sure you will agree, is amazing. So that is it for today's episode. I really hope you have taken so much away from it. Get in touch. Let us know what thoughts you have after listening to Sam, if you have any further questions, and what your takeaways are, because this podcast is for you and we really want to know if what we're doing is helping. And I'm sure you can agree that Sam has really shed a light on some really important things. So thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. So that's it from today's episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would like to get involved or would like to know more, come and find us on our social media sites. We have a Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, and TikTok account. All of the details will be in the description. And whatever you're doing, I hope you have a great day today.